Now let's take a look at the last nominee for Grand National Champion.
Christchurch City winners, Gorilla Team Gorilla.
He was a gunslinger, your father. You know that? Fastest I ever saw.
This film took a lot of people by surprise. Sex Education, obviously, people have an initial impression of how it's going to play out, and this team went with a great idea. They went with a narrative, totally flipped the genre on its head.
It's quite a remarkable piece of work. The judges all just sat there with their jaws agape in the cinema and just went, wow, this is amazing.
When we found out we had sex ed, I was like, screw this. It's not even a real genre. And then we started shooting this comedy, which was a police comedy, with Jeremy Sex and Ricardo Education, two police partners. And I was playing the police chief.
I want to have sex all over this case.
It was very weird, and we got into it, and it was just like, ugh. And I thought, oh man, I'd rather do something that's a bit more challenging than try to shoot a drama.
Wasn't right what happened to him.
The idea is we'd do it as a serious film, and then it's a public service announcement, like the films from the 50s, but it's a bit darker and a bit more serious.
We all know nothing lasts forever. An outcast arrived from another town. He took a liking to your mother.
The film's set in New Zealand in early 1900s. It starts with an unnamed character. It was actually supposed to be the sheriff, but it never really came across because we couldn't find him a sheriff's badge.
I was with a small child, little girl, and I was taking her through how her mother and father died.
You know how he did die? Well, I guess you could say it started with your mother.
A guy came from another town who had syphilis, and he ends up raping this girl. Kurt, who's playing the rapist in the film, he's a computer programmer and just a nerd by day.
I generally play weird characters for Logan. Thankfully it wasn't the speaking parts, because I don't know if I could have pulled that off.
Georgia, who was runner-up in Miss New Zealand this year, would never met her before. All she knew that she was going to do for the day is she's in a scene where she gets raped.
This was my first time ever acting. Well, I've played Sickie at home, but that's about it. I've never actually done any acting other than that.
There's a gunfight between the husband and the rapist. The rapist gets killed, but then the wife dies from syphilis, and then the husband dies from syphilis because they all contracted it.
But in this life, nothing's fair. He was a gunslinger, your father. Fastest I ever saw. Wasn't right what happened to him.
48 Hours presents a Gorilla Team Gorilla film. Guns. Big hats. Sex. Education. Death in the West.